Welcome to the Bootstrap Founder. My name is Arvid Kahl and I talk about bootstrapping, entrepreneurship, and building in public. Today, I'll talk about the concept of utility. What makes a product useful and how does that relate to what it's worth? Before we get to that, let me thank the sponsor of today's episode. One thing that I am personally always confused by in any of my businesses, and I've run a couple in the past, and it still confuses me to this day, is dealing with financials. I love writing and I love coding, but if you put me in front of a spreadsheet with a bunch of CSV files from the bank and then expect me to do something with this, I get very confused. It's just not for me. I don't like it. And fortunately, it doesn't have to be for you either. Enter Pinto Financial. They streamline your bookkeeping, your forecasting, and cash flow, and they don't stop there. Pinto takes it to the next level, providing custom video-based monthly reports so you always know where you stand financially. Just think of them as your financial lifeline who are guiding you through the choppy waters of business financial management. So, if you're ready to navigate these waters with confidence, visit usepinto.com/learn to learn more about how Pinto Financial can help you build profitably. That's usepinto.com/learn. All right, now let's get to our main topic today. Utility isn't just being a Swiss Army knife. In fact, this might be one of the biggest misconceptions in entrepreneurship. Too many founders conflate the value of their products with the amount of potential problems that they can solve. They spend their time and their efforts to slap on more and more perceived functionality that will then end up diluting the actual overall utility of the product itself. The Swiss Army knife metaphor is particularly powerful here because have you ever seen a chef use a Swiss Army knife to fillet a pricey piece of tuna? Or does a roofer screw the tiles of your new fancy metal cladding onto your house with the flimsy screwdriver bit of a Swiss Army knife? Well, of course they don't. They are using professional tools to do a professional job. Or at the very least, they have learned not to use the generic tools anymore. They may have started with it, but they've gotten to use the professional ones. And that's why many successful SaaS businesses originate from self-built Excel sheet monstrosities. Initially, the generic spreadsheet tool, that was good enough to handle most things that were needed to solve the problem. But at some point, complexity started and it causes diminishing returns. Edge cases make that spreadsheet hard to use, from high utility to low. Fertile ground for this use case only software product in the making. Utility is strongest when it's dual-sided. The products are useful for the customer and the business selling the product is profitable for its owner. A successful business sticks around and reliably produces and then distributes a useful product to the people who need it. But once again, we run into diminishing returns. And this time, it's on the founder side of things, because people will only pay so much for any given solution. In fact, they will pay only as much as the problem that the solution is for costs them. And that's why founders find it much easier to land a $5,000 customer than a $50 customer, because a $5,000 problem hurts way more than a $50 problem. And I experienced this a little bit when experimenting with the pricing of Feedback Panda, the online teacher productivity SaaS that I co-founded and then eventually sold in 2019. We had an extremely cheap subscription plan of $5 a month, and the customers who bought that one were much more likely to cause customer service headaches than the ones that had bought the $15 subscription that we introduced later. A subtle difference in price, but it was a major shift in psychology. If you consider the monetary value of your product or of the problem, if you're a customer and you consider that a monetary value of the problem higher, then you start valuing the solution more as well, but only to a point. There's a ceiling for almost any pricing effort, mostly dictated by the budget that itself is determined through many, many factors. If you sell to people who freelance and make less than $2,000 a month in pre-tax, your service can't really cost more than $100. There just isn't room for this kind of expense. So you have to think about that. And this introduces an outsized impact on fees. If you offer a software product, Stripe, if you use that, takes a cut of every transaction. And the lower your price, the higher their share of your profits. And when you build something physical, like a set of 3D printed keycaps for a mechanical keyboard, and you list them on Etsy, you have to deal with a listing fee and a processing fee and a transaction fee, a shipping and expenses fee, and the cost of your raw materials. That's often more than half of what you can price things at because it costs you so much. And that's also why SaaS businesses are all the rage right now. Their marginal cost is almost zero. It costs you next to nothing to allow one more customer to use your product. But you do need a critical mass of customers to initially become profitable. And that's where utility comes back in. A tool that is spectacularly good at solving one particular problem and nothing else is highly useful for the people who have that exact problem. They are also able to pretty accurately determine what cost not solving this problem would incur for them. So if your product is priced anywhere below that cost, it is a purchasing decision waiting to happen. So now, if price pressure is high with competitors and stuff, where can you go to build a high utility business? Well, utility can also be something you can't find anywhere else, something specific. As an entrepreneur, the most impactful place for your work is at the intersection of all your fields of interest. If you're a person who loves to tinker with electronics, has a 3D printer, and knows how to set up an e-commerce website, you can quickly build and sell bespoke gadgets that no one else is building. Sci-fi themed power outlets that have illuminated lightsabers sticking out of them as nightlights? Delightful. Intersectional specificity is magic. What matters is that you make things for a very narrowly defined niche of prospective customers who are already aware of their own budget. You need your customers to understand what utility looks like. Something made especially for them will be the easiest thing for them to judge on its utility. Be their chef's knife or their high-powered screwdriver. Offer the thing that professionals use to do their professional jobs. Solve one problem really well and not much more. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening to The Bootstrap Founder. You can find me on Twitter at Arvidkahl, ARVIDKAHL. That's my name. You'll find my books and my Twitter course there as well. If you want to support me and the show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, get the podcast in your podcast player of choice, and leave a rating and a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/founder. Any of this will help the show. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.